I stopped paying for a life that didn't include me. The catering deposit, the rehearsal dinner, the hotel block I reserved under my name. All of it gone the moment I realized my brother's fiance's family had one condition for the wedding. I wasn't allowed to be there, and my parents agreed to it. Let me back up, because none of this makes sense without the part that came before the part nobody talks about when they're busy calling me difficult. My name is Serena. I'm 31 years old. I'm a project manager at a logistics firm in Charlotte, and for the last 6 years, I have been the financial backbone of my family. Not because anyone asked me to be, at first. I stepped in when my father's contracting business collapsed, when my mother's hours got cut, when my younger brother Daniel started college, and my parents quietly let me know they couldn't cover his tuition without help. I didn't think twice. That's the version of myself I had always been, the one who showed up, who figured it out, who made the spreadsheet and found the money and said, "Don't worry, I've got it." "I've got it" became the most expensive phrase I ever learned. By the time Daniel proposed to his girlfriend Mara, I had been quietly covering the following: my parents' mortgage shortfall every month, $800. My mother's car note when her hours dropped again, $340 a month. Daniel's remaining student loans, which we agreed I would pay down interest-free as a gift. And the security deposit on the apartment he and Mara moved into together, because they needed help and I had it, and that's what you do for family. That's what I told myself. That's what I was taught. Mara was fine. I want to be honest about that. She wasn't cruel to me. She was just distant in a way that felt intentional, like she was deciding, slowly and without urgency, whether I was worth knowing. Her family was tight-knit in a way mine never was. They had dinners every Sunday, inside jokes that stretched back decades, a shared language I was never invited to learn. I didn't resent that. Some families are just like that. What I didn't know, what nobody told me until much later, was that from the moment Daniel got down on one knee, Mara's mother had a problem with me. Not with anything I did. With what I represented. I found this out the way you find out most things in my family. Sideways. Too late. By accident. It was a Tuesday evening in March. I was on a call with my mother, going through the catering options I had been researching. Daniel and Mara wanted a summer wedding. Outdoor ceremony, about 120 guests, seated dinner with an open bar. My parents had asked gently, with that specific softness they reserved for large requests, whether I might help coordinate the vendors, since I was good at that sort of thing. I was already making the spreadsheet. I already had 3 catering quotes pulled up. My mother said, "While we're talking, there's something we need to discuss about the reception seating." I thought she meant the table layout. She didn't mean the table layout. She told me that Mara's parents, specifically her mother, a woman named Diane, had expressed some concerns about the guest list. Diane felt that the wedding should feel intimate, small, family-focused, and Diane had a definition of family that, it turned out, did not include me. I asked my mother to repeat that. She said it again. Slower this time, as if the problem was that I hadn't understood the words. Diane felt that having me there would create an imbalance. That's the word she used, imbalance. Because I had contributed so much financially, Diane was worried I would seem like a co-host rather than a guest. She was worried it would make Mara uncomfortable on her own wedding day. I sat with that for a moment. I want you to understand how quiet the apartment was. I had a half-eaten bowl of pasta on my kitchen counter. My laptop was open to a catering website. I had 17 browser tabs open, all of them in service of a wedding I was now being told I could not attend. I asked my mother what she said to Diane when Diane proposed this. She said she told Diane she would talk to me. Not no. Not that's not acceptable. Not Serena is my daughter, and she will be at her brother's wedding. She said she would talk to me. I asked if Daniel knew. She paused just a beat too long. He knew. I didn't raise my voice. I'm telling you this because I know what you're expecting. I know the version of this story where the woman screams and cries, and that becomes the thing everyone remembers. I didn't give them that. I said I needed to think, and I got off the phone, and I sat at my kitchen table for about 45 minutes just being still. There is a particular kind of pain that doesn't arrive loudly. It settles. It finds all the corners of you and makes itself at home, and you just sit there and feel it move in. I had paid for the venue deposit 2 weeks earlier. $1,200, non-refundable unless canceled within 30 days of the booking date. I had exactly 19 days left in that window. I opened a new spreadsheet. I want to tell you exactly what was in it, because the details matter. Not because I need you to see the numbers, though you will, but because the act of writing it down was the moment I understood what had actually happened to me. Sometimes you don't know what something cost until you count it. Daniel's security deposit, $2,000. His last 2 semesters of loan payments, $4,300. The venue deposit I had just wired, $1,200. The catering quote I had verbally confirmed interest in, not signed yet, but confirmed, $8,000 estimated. The hotel block I'd reserved under my credit card for out-of-town guests. Room hold for 15 rooms, liability of roughly $4,500 if not released in time. And then the ongoing, $800 a month for 6 years to my parents' mortgage. $340 a month for my mother's car. The miscellaneous, the grocery runs, the emergency transfers, the times my mother said, "Can you just?" and I said yes. I highlighted the column, added the formula. I'll let you sit with that number for a second. It was not a small number. I called Daniel the next morning. I'd slept 4 hours. I had a coffee I wasn't tasting. I wanted to hear him tell me himself, not through my mother, not softened, just the actual truth of it from his mouth. He answered on the second ring, which told me he'd been expecting my call and had decided to take it rather than let it sit. I gave him credit for that. I said, "Did you know Mara's mom asked for me not to be at the wedding?" He was quiet for a moment. Then he said yes. I said, "When did you find out?" He said Mara had told him about 2 months ago. 2 months. 2 months during which he had accepted money from me, during which he had texted me vendor questions and asked me to look into photographers and thanked me for handling the hotel block. 2 months during which he let me keep building something I was going to be excluded from. I asked him why he didn't tell me. He said he didn't want to start anything. He said Mara was stressed. He said he was hoping it would just work itself out. I asked him what that meant, work itself out. What was the version where this worked itself out? Was Diane going to change her mind? Was I going to somehow stop being his sister between now and July? He said he didn't know. He just didn't want to make Mara's family uncomfortable. I asked him if he had considered whether I was uncomfortable. He didn't have an answer for that. I told him I needed a few days to think. He said okay. He said he was sorry. I believed him, in the small way you believe an apology that comes without any offer to change the thing that caused it. I spent the next 3 days doing 2 things simultaneously. On the surface, I was still fielding vendor emails because nobody had officially told me to stop, and I wasn't going to make any moves until I was ready. Underneath, I was methodically reviewing every financial commitment I had made and checking the cancellation terms on each one. The venue, cancelable within 30 days, which I had 18 days left on. The catering company, I had expressed interest verbally, but signed nothing. 0 obligation. The hotel block, releasable with 72 hours notice before the hold date. The florist I had been emailing, no deposit sent yet. The only thing I had spent that I could not recover was my time. On the 4th day, I called my parents together on a video call. I do this when something is important. I need to see both of them. My mother looked anxious. My father looked like a man who had been briefed and was hoping the meeting would be short. I told them I had been thinking carefully. I told them I understood that navigating a new family dynamic was complicated. I told them I was not calling to yell, or to make ultimatums, or to be dramatic. Then I shared my screen. The spreadsheet was clean. White background, gray headers, clear columns amount, date, category, recipient. Every transfer, every deposit, every payment going back 4 years. I had transaction records for all of it. I had attached receipts for the larger ones. My mother made a sound I won't describe. I told them that I had made all of these contributions because I loved my family and I wanted to help. That had been true. It was still true. But I had made them as a member of this family, someone who expected to be included in its important moments, who expected to sit in a chair at her brother's wedding and watch him get married. I told them that Diane's request had not been small. It had not been a seating preference or a scheduling conflict. I had been asked to fund an event and then absent myself from it, and my parents had agreed to those terms without consulting me, and my brother had known for 2 months and said nothing while continuing to accept my help. I told them I was canceling the venue deposit. I was releasing the hotel block. I was not moving forward with catering, florals, or any other vendor coordination. I was also, effective the following month, pausing the monthly transfer to their mortgage account. Not stopping, pausing, until we could have a real conversation about what this family actually looked like. My father started to say something about Diane's perspective, about cultural considerations, about how Mara was nervous, and this was a hard time for everyone. I asked him if he had a line item for Diane's perspective in the spreadsheet. I said I didn't see one, but I was happy to add a column. He stopped talking. My mother asked if I was seriously going to do this. If I was going to punish my brother over something I could just let go. I want to tell you exactly what I said, because I chose the words carefully. I said, I'm not punishing anyone. I'm just declining to keep funding a version of this family that doesn't have room for me. You're welcome to fund it yourself. I ended the call. The next hour was one of the quietest of my life. I sat on my couch with my phone face down and just breathed. I had been bracing for this to feel worse than it did, for the guilt to be unbearable, for the voice in my head that always said you're being selfish, you're making this hard. Why can't you just let it go to arrive and take over? It didn't come. What came instead was something I hadn't felt in years. It was so unfamiliar I almost didn't recognize it. It was the feeling of taking up exactly as much space as I deserved. My mother called back 7 minutes later. I let it go to voicemail. Daniel texted me that evening. The message said, I know you're upset and I'm sorry this happened. Can we talk? I read it and set the phone down and thought about the 2 months. I thought about every text he'd sent me in those 2 months asking about the seating chart and the catering deposit and whether I'd gotten a response from the hotel. I thought about how easy it is to say, I'm sorry this happened, and how different that is from, I'm sorry I did that. I did not respond that night. My parents had their own mortgage payment to figure out for the first time in 4 years. I don't say that with satisfaction. I say it as a fact. The consequence of their choice had been abstract until the first of the month, and then it wasn't. My mother called me 5 days later. Not from the place of the previous call, not frantic, not accusatory. Something had shifted. She sounded tired in a different way. She asked if we could meet for coffee. We met at a diner near her house, which is where we have always had the conversations that matter. I got there first. I ordered coffee. I waited. She sat down and looked at me for a moment before she spoke. She said she had talked to Daniel. She said some things had been said in that conversation that she hadn't expected. I asked what kind of things. She said Daniel had told her when she pushed him, when she really asked him to be honest about it, that he had known about Diane's request for 2 months and had chosen not to say anything because he was afraid of losing Mara if he pushed back, and that he had kept accepting my help because he didn't know how to stop without explaining why, and that he had told himself it would work out because he needed it to work out. I looked at my coffee. She said, he said it was wrong. He said it clearly. He said he should have told you. I asked her what she said. She said, I told him he was right. That was the first time in the entire situation that I cried. Not from anger, from the sheer exhaustion of needing to hear someone say the obvious true thing. We sat there for a while. She did not ask me to reinstate the mortgage payment. She did not try to reframe Diane's behavior as reasonable. She just sat with me. And she said she was sorry she hadn't said no when it would have meant something. Daniel called me a week later. It was a longer conversation. It was not comfortable. He said the things he needed to say, and I said the things I needed to say, and we didn't resolve everything. That's not how real conversations work. But he called Diane's request what it was. He used the word wrong. He told me that he had talked to Mara, and that Mara had told her mother that if I wasn't welcome, then the contributions I had made were also being declined retroactively, which meant they were funding the remainder of the wedding themselves. I didn't ask him to do that. He did it because it was the right thing, and maybe because he finally understood that you don't get to accept someone's investment and erase them at the same time. You don't get to take someone's money and then tell them they don't belong in the room it built. I reinstated the mortgage payment 2 months later, after a conversation with both my parents that was honest in a way we had never quite managed before. I did not go back to doing everything. I went back to doing what felt sustainable, and chosen not what felt required by the role I had been assigned. Diane's opinion of me, as far as I know, has not changed. I was not warmly welcomed at the wedding, but I was there. I sat 3 rows back in a white wooden chair in the July heat, and I watched my brother get married, and afterward at the reception I drank a glass of champagne and ate the food I had not paid for, and I talked to people I liked and left when I was ready. Mara shook my hand at the end of the night. It was formal, a little stiff, but she looked me in the eye when she did it, which is more than she had managed in the year before. I don't need Diane to like me. I don't need Mara's family to understand what I did or why. I don't need anyone to tell me I was right, not because I'm certain I handled everything perfectly, but because I stopped needing permission to have limits. That's the thing nobody prepares you for when you've spent years being the reliable one, the generous one, the one who figures it out and doesn't make it a big deal. At some point, the role stops being a choice and starts being an expectation. And when you stop meeting the expectation, people experience it as a betrayal, even when what you did was just decide you were worth including. I have the spreadsheet saved in a folder on my laptop. I don't look at it often, but I know it's there, and knowing it's there reminds me of something important. My generosity has a record. My contributions are real, and they are documented, and they have value. And so do I. The flowers at that wedding were beautiful. White ranunculus and eucalyptus, which was what I had suggested to Daniel back in March, in the version of the story where I was still a welcome part of it. I noticed them from my seat in the third row. I thought they looked exactly right.